In Victoria, we have family violence intervention orders. People use IVOs and AVOs as sort of interchangeable concepts. They're all referring to the same thing. They're referring to an order that restrains prohibitive behaviour. That is, in a family violence intervention order, it's in relation to somebody who's in a family group. A personal safety intervention order is in relation to somebody who's not related to you. So it sort of all is fairly obvious why there's a distinction that is drawn in those circumstances. So what I'm talking about here really is personal safety intervention orders and how they progress through the court. If you're served with a personal safety intervention order, go and see a lawyer straight away. There's no time to waste because there are various things that need to be sorted out. And often these happen when the police turn up and they're charging somebody for an offence and they're giving them an intervention order. So they often go hand in hand. Or it can be that the person's given a notice to go to court and conditions requiring them not to commit any sort of violence or the prohibited behaviour, and then they're off to court and then charges follow at a later point. So they're often very intertwined concepts. When you first go to court, the court's just wanting to case manage the matter. So they are deciding, does this need more court time? Have their issues been resolved? Do the conditions need to be varied? And the reality is that you can ask for whatever conditions you like in a personal safety intervention order, PSIO, and they can be varied by the court. So the court might decide there's no need for the people not to be in the same house. There just has to be a prohibition on the person shouting and abusing the other person. So they might do one that's that limited. But they might also say a person can't be within 50 metres of another person. And these conditions often cause problems like where a person has to drive down a road to get to their work, or they share a driveway with someone. And so there's a lot of pragmatic negotiation about conditions to try and get to the main aim of it, which is to secure the people who are involved in the process until a magistrate can decide what has happened. So, and then make a final order. So often you'll find on the first occasion there's discussion about conditions and then the matter is adjourned to a directions hearing. That is if you're going to contest the order. You can always resolve the matter on the first day by saying that you consent to the order. You're not making admissions about what happened. And that's the end of it, other than the fact that you have an order in place. So often where there's an order that's sort of borderline, whether it's justified, but the person doesn't want to spend the time and energy on it, and they know they're leaving the country in a week or whatever the circumstances may be that will have little impact, you can just go along, agree to the order. The disadvantages of that process are there consequential things that flow from intervention orders. So, for example, you can't own firearms if you have an intervention order. So if you're a farmer, that might have a huge impact on you. You can get orders from the court in relation to possession of firearms as a separate sort of concept, which you can do at any stage. There's also often regulatory bodies that will want to know that you've got an intervention order in place. So your employer might have something in your contract, or it might affect you in some other way. So it's hard to just speculate about all the consequences. You have to go and explain your circumstances to your lawyer, and then they will walk you through, here's what might have to happen. We might have to go to APRA, who's one of the regulators, and tell them that you are facing the intervention order and that you're also being charged with an assault, but that we're defending it. Some regulatory organisations make it mandatory that you tell them, and if you don't tell them within a certain time after being charged, then that in itself is a grounds for them taking away your licence. So you just need to work through the various issues with your lawyer. A further thing is that you might consent to an order and then suddenly you are charged with a breach of it. And what we often see is people get an order, the other person thinks, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to breach the order. But then you bump into that person and you have an argument, and they go to the police and say you threatened them. In that situation, you're always on the back foot because of the original order having been made. So part of the deliberation about whether you agree to a personal safety intervention order is, what are the consequences? How much am I actually placing myself in a position that a person can make a spurious complaint against me and the police are going to be coming around and arresting me? Because if you have an order in place and there's an allegation of a breach, the police will follow it up. It's not a situation that they'll say, oh, it's only a phone call. They're being pressured to respond to these things, and so even the very minor sort of breaches can end up in the criminal court process.